Scams, shady business, or just crooks trying to buy their way into the sport of NASCAR are nothing new and are quite prevalent throughout history. LW Wright, the DC Solar Ponzi scheme, and one can make an entire video talking about the dealings of JD Stacy. These scams don't happen often, and a story breaks every couple of years. But even if there is one currently going on, you wouldn't know it, as it's typically behind closed doors. However, there are a few exceptions to this. I mentioned JD Stacy, who had a peculiar interest in placing his name on about every car within his site. I don't think anybody at the time thought it was anything but shady. But what if I told you there is a team currently running right now that everyone knows is shady, including NASCAR? Well, there is. And today, we'll talk about a little something called reckless ownership. Meet Glory to God Racing, also known as G2G Racing. Our story starts with Tim Vaines, a South Hero Vermont native who grew up as an avid football player and fan. He founded a business called Evergreen Source. After a lack of marketing, the business quickly failed, and he switched his attention to founding RaceDaySponsor.com, a company that manages drivers' revenue in essence. Later, he'd be approached by Andy Hillenberg, who ran a driving school that allowed him to get his feet wet in racing. One thing led to another, and he found himself driving for Carter II Motorsports and ARCA in 2012, beginning at Salem. For unknown reasons, however, he would never start the race. For the next few years, he'd rummaged through the back rooms of the top 20 in ARCA. He landed himself some truck rides, which went just about as bad, and even got some Xfinity Series opportunities. Minus a couple lackluster finishes and D&Qs, he'd finished a surprisingly solid 18th at Daytona in 2020 for Mike Harmon Racing. So he's a below-average racer / journeyman, just trying to do his best to beat the best and put food on the table. No harm whatsoever there. Well, until you look at some of the shady stuff he's done in the past. He and Micah Frano teamed up in 2020 to start a team, only to pull in a bica. There are some other strange occurrences, but let's just say his resume is far from clean. And even if it was, the next chapter in the story taints that. Vaines realized that he really had no job security in the sport, and hey, no one really does, except those who are their own boss. Vaines got it in his head that he could start a truck series team. It's relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things. Kevin Manion bought a truck off RacersJunk.com and won a Martinsville. Charlie Henderson is the only full-time employee at Henderson Motorsports, and after some years of hard work, grit, and determination, he finds himself staring down 2 golden cups. There's some growing pains for sure, but hard work is a currency of success, and with it, patience and a little randomness that's bound to happen in racing, you could comfortably situate yourself with the Young's Motorsports of the garage. He first bought some old trucks from Kyle Busch Motorsports before announcing on Instagram that he had intentions to open up a truck team. Ray Cicerelli was on his way out of the sport, and he gave his assets from his team, CMI Motorsports, to G2G Racing. GMS Racing and ThorSport also leased some trucks. Wow, things are actually getting put together quite quickly. On February 3rd, 2022, an announcement was officially made. G2G Racing will be fielding 2 full-time trucks in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. The team owners are NASCAR driver Tim Vaines and partner Bill Shea, with Tim Silva as a general manager and crew chief. The 2-truck program that is based out of Mooresville, North Carolina, will display the assigned numbers of 46 and 47, and both will run Toyota as the manufacturer. The 46 will be driven by Matt Jaskell full-time, with Auto Parts for Less and Lift Kits for Less as the primary sponsors. I can't fully express how grateful I am to have this opportunity with G2G Racing and have the continued support from Auto Parts for Less and LiftKitsForLess.com. All I've wanted is a chance to work with the team for a full season, and it looks like I'm finally going to get to do just that, says Jaskell. Chris Davenport, owner of both LiftKitsForLess.com and AutoPartsForLess.com, says, "We are excited to partner with G2G Racing for the 2022 Camping World Truck Series season. Johnny and Matt Jaskell will be a tremendous force in the series and bringing great value to our e-commerce brands. The 47 will be driven by 3 different drivers. 2016 NASCAR Camping World Truck Series champion Johnny Sauter will drive up to 13 races starting with the season opener at Daytona, with the primary sponsor being LiftKitsForLess.com. Sauter said, "I couldn't be more excited to go after a 4th win at Daytona. I want to thank Tim Vaines and G2G for this amazing opportunity." Team owner Tim Vaines will run 5 races with the primary sponsor as Boat Gadget. Roger Roos will also run 5 races. A Truck Series champion in the organization, a full sponsorship deal, this has all the makings for success. In a few years, this could be a legitimate satellite team to ThorSport or KBM. Well, let's see how they fare at the season opener at Daytona. The 46 of Matt Jaskell has no owner's points, and while the 47 doesn't either, Sauter has a past Truck Series Champions provisional if he doesn't make the show. Practice comes and goes, and Jaskell struggles and only musters a lap time of 50.86, clocking him 34th fastest. The skydiver / driving instructor / stunt driver who first dabbled into NASCAR just last year has the odds against him. Can he beat the odds in qualifying? As for Sauter, he clocked in P9 with a lap time of 48.43 seconds. There is some pressure on him to do well, even in qualifying, as he comes in as the defending pole sitter. Can he defend? Let's see.
The driver has limited responsibility, if you will, at getting this pole, but this is a guy that's won here and knows how to get it done. In any racetrack we go to, Johnny Sauter is going to be a threat. Got him a new ride this year. Going to be driving the 47. Been with Thor forever. And now look at him. Got him a new truck and a lot of optimism.
And they're talking about he will run some races this year for Thor Sport. They're right now they're targeting Martinsville to be the first one.
And when I said there's some things that the driver has to do properly, one is leave pit road. You know, you only got one lap, so if you stumble coming off pit road, it's going to hurt your overall speed. There's no doubt about it. And then you want to run as close to that yellow line as you can without hitting it, because if you hit it, it'll scrape the nose and that scrub speed. So that's a bit of a balancing act there, being able to judge how close you are to it, not getting too close.
They were scrambling a bit down in the garage after tech today to get this 47 Toyota ready to roll. And you see his time at a 52.55 for the three-time Daytona winner.
The answer is no. While he clocked in 5th fastest, it would be one of the slower times on the day. Fortunately, he had that provisional handy, and this allowed him to make the show. As for Jaskol, well, they started off with some firing issues, and after some adjustments, they were able to post a lap.
The top 10 if you want to advance and have a shot at the pole, but there are 41 trucks here for only 36 spots, so you've got to get in the top 31 just to be in on time, right?
Yeah, some of these teams are really concerned about that 31 number, because if we have several new trucks. There are actually 5 different trucks that are new with no points, so they know that they're going to have to make that top 31.
Jamie?
John Hunter Nemechek is one of those drivers who is looking to step up a little bit from last year. As a career best season for you. You're the only driver who finished in the top 10 on both of the super speedways. You had a 7th place here at Daytona. What's left to prove for you?
Go win some more races and go win the championship this year. Hopefully we can get it kicked off on the right foot here tonight. Our Pi Barker Fire Alarm Services Toyota Tundra TRD Pro was pretty quick yesterday in practice. I felt like it drafted well.
They clocked in 12th fastest when they went out, but it wouldn't be enough. He would DNQ. So Sauter will roll off last, or 36th on the grid. It'll be a long hike up to the top, but it's not impossible. By lap 2, they're running 29th, 2.3 seconds behind the leader. By lap 4, they're in the top 25. However, they lose the draft shortly thereafter and fall to 35th. On lap 17, they're 1 lap down. This concerns many fans, as it takes a little longer for lapping to begin at Daytona, and some begin to think there might be an issue with the truck that is causing the slow performance. Nonetheless, they finish stage 1 in 35th place. During the stage break, the team discovers there was a broken plug wire, which caused them to drop back significantly. The issue is fixed, and they're good to go. Also, Tim Vaines proposes to wife Artemis on pit lane. After a yes by her, they share a moment surrounded by the applause and cheers of media and fans alike. Stage 2 is fairly quiet for Sauter, and he more or less rides around in the back of the pack. With 10 to go, he sits 32nd, 1 lap down. With 2 to go, they drop to 33rd and finish there for the stage. Stage 3 goes green, and Sauter is the only truck on his lap, meaning they'll get a free pass only if a caution comes out, which is what they're hoping for. Past the halfway point of the race, the leaders begin to catch the 7 of Austin Hill, which is bad news. It means if they lap him, they'll have to race the Spire truck for the free pass. Sauter comes on the radio a while later saying the truck is loose. It becomes so bad, they have to come down to pit road for what they believe to be an electrical issue. Fortunately, it doesn't appear to be engine related, so they have a chance to get back on track and at least finish the race under power. The crew chief tells them to push it behind the wall, and in the garage they realize the problem. They then think it is a battery issue, so they'll just put a new one in and be good to go. However, the real issue has something to do with the electrical line. This can't be fixed at the track, so they'll be done for the night. Sauter finishes the race in 34th, out, with electrical issues, having completed 60 out of the 106 laps. Next on the schedule, Las Vegas. Trouble arises even before practice went green. On the entry list, Johnny Sauter was noticeably missing. Some dismissed this, saying that it was stated that he wouldn't run the full schedule. But wait, 13 races with G2G and 10 planned races with ThorSport equals 23. He's not with ThorSport, and there are 23 races on the schedule. No one quite knows what happens. Sauter left G2G and has only ran for ThorSport this year. Rumor has it that he quit due to poor performance on the team's part, and if it's true, you can't blame him. That was the roughest Daytona race he had in more than a decade. The 47 would instead feature Matt Jaskol, while Jaskol's 46 would feature Brendan Poole. Poole was on his way back into NASCAR, at least more regularly, after a broken wrist sidelined him for weeks on end in 2021. The previous week at Auto Club, he DNQ'd for Mike Harmon Racing, so to ink this deal and qualify would be huge. And that's another thing. 37 trucks were on the entry list for 36 spots. The two trucks without an owner provisional, both G2G racing trucks. This meant Jaskol and Poole would be going against each other head-to-head. Jaskol had the upper hand after practice, clocking in 36th, while Poole was 37th. As for qualifying, Poole clocked in 33rd, while Jaskol was a ways back, meaning Jaskol had DNQ'd and Poole was in. Until the team stated that they would actually take Poole out and put in Jaskol. They claimed it was, quote, just a business decision, but my guess is that they wanted to honor their preseason commitment to giving Jaskol the full schedule. So even though Poole qualified his way in, he was still sent packing. Jaskol will start last for the race due to the driver change. The green flag flies for the truck race, and Jaskol will ride around in 36th for several laps. With 8 to go in stage 1, they climbed up 2 spots after a caution. They come in and make some adjustments before the green flies out with 3 to go. At the end of this stage, they are still 34th, 1 lap down. But they've run a clean race thus far, which is good. Jaskol comes in for fuel, tires, and an adjustment. The green flag comes out for stage 2 on lap 38. On lap 40, Jaskol finds a groove and climbs up to 32nd. They pit during the stage for fuel and make some adjustments again and gain a spot. On lap 54, the caution comes out, and they are 1 spot away from the free pass. So close. A 1-lap shootout for the end doesn't deter them, and they finish 31st. They order the same tray of adjustments with some tape to the grill as the only thing added. With 67 to go, stage 3 is underway with Jaskol in 32nd. Sometime later, the caution comes out, and they climb back up to 31st. When the green comes back out, they are 30th and in the free pass position. Okay, they just need a caution. And they get it. With 40 to go, they go back to green in 29th. Several cautions will fly, and several lucky dogs will be handed out. By the time it's 23 to go, they are 26th and gaining. A caution flies with 15 to go, as they are 25th. With 11 to go, they are 27th. 10 to go, 28th. They'll gain a couple more spots and finish the day out in 23rd. A huge mini-win for the team, and for Jaskol, who does this in only his first Truck Series start. Up next, Atlanta. For Atlanta, Jaskol will be back in the 46, and they'll be back in black. Poole will also be back, this time in the 47. They unload the trucks for practice, and they show some promise with Poole clocking in 9th fastest and Jaskol in 21st. With only 36 trucks entered, nobody will go home, and this comes as a bigger relief after qualifying is cancelled due to weather. Jaskol will roll out 31st and Poole 35th. The green flag flies, and only 5 laps in, things are looking good. Poole is all the way up in 25th. He's known to maximize the potential of certain cars, and that's paying dividends so far. Jaskol rides in 31st. Halfway through the stage, Poole is in 22nd with Jaskol in 30th. However, with 5 to go, Poole drops to 27th and Jaskol drops to 31st. Poole still says the balance is good, so he finishes the stage off 1 spot higher, and Jaskol stays in P31. Both teams will make minimal adjustments during the stage break. Jaskol gets off pit road fine, but Poole gets bopped for speeding. You'll have to go to the rear. The green flag comes back out with Jaskol in 23rd and Poole in 32nd. A few laps in, Poole radios that the truck is a little loose in dirty air. On lap 47, a crash happens right in front of them. Fortunately, they make it through. Tim Silva then tells Jaskol to not worry about the oil temp, rather the water temp. Other than that, he says that he settled in quite well. As for Poole's team, well, they have bigger ambitions. They want to get the lead. The spotter says the truck is going to be, quote, stupid up front. Nonetheless, the green comes back out with 5 to go in stage 2. A few laps in, and Poole brings it to the pits having lost power. A caution then comes out for debris, ending the stage with Jaskol in 24th and Poole in 29th. Poole thinks his truck might have an electrical issue. They say it has power, but it won't crank. They realize that it just wasn't fueled up all the way, which is a relief. After pit stops during the stage break, Jaskol now gets bopped for speeding, and Poole does too. They come back to green before a caution comes out again. They go back to green again with Jaskol in 19th and Poole in 28th. Poole says the truck is a little loose on entry. Luckily, a caution comes out, allowing the team to come down to pit road for an adjustment. Before the green, Jaskol thinks he may have lost first gear. In P18, he'll just have to ride it out. They come back to green, and the two trucks settle in. Poole is in the lucky dog position and is just hoping for a caution, which does come. They come back to green with 38 to go. Jaskol says the truck is hitting the track really bad. 30 to go. Jaskol is P23, Poole is P27. 20 to go. Jaskol is 22nd, Poole doesn't change. By 5 to go, Jaskol is 20th and Poole is 26th. The checkered flag falls, and it's another monstrous performance by Jaskol, who breaches into the top 20 and scores a 19th place finish. Brendan Poole finishes 28th. Up next, Coda. It isn't unusual to see a regular in a small team taken out in place of a road ringer. Jaskol will still be in the 46th for Circuit of the Americas, while the 47 will feature Samuel LeCompte. LeCompte mainly races in the Trans Am Series TA2 class. Due to having experience at the Circuit of the Americas track, CMI Motorsports brought in LeCompte to make his NASCAR Camping World Truck Series debut in the number 72 truck back in 2021. However, he posted the 40th fastest time in qualifying, which was not enough to make the race. This year, however, you'll hope things turn out a bit differently. There are 39 trucks this week, which means 3 will go home. After practice, LeCompte and Jaskol are sitting 38th and 39th respectively. Jaskol says that his truck is understeering a lot. After qualifying, Jaskol sits P35. Unfortunately for LeCompte, he doesn't make the show. The green flag flies, and already Jaskol reports some difficulty turning. They come down pit road, and they'll stay there for the rest of the stage. They finish it off P35. They go back on track just in time for the beginning of Stage 2. A full course caution follows suit. They're up to P34. Stage 2 will finish out with Jaskol still in P34. Stage 3 comes out, and after the 25 of Matt Benedetto and 44 of Chris Wright DNF, the team has a motive to continue racing. In a few laps, they get past them. Remember, they're just riding in the back this race, and letting the positions come to them as they may. With under 7 to go, Jaskol's engine loses power, and he'll be done for the day. Having completed just 30 of the 46 laps, it's a disappointment for sure. He will be scored in 33rd. Next up, Martinsville. Trouble arises on April 7th, 2022. G2G Racing has released Matt Jaskol. As the news is breaking that I will not be in the 46th NASCAR truck tonight in Martinsville, VA for G2G Racing, I want to clarify that this was not the decision made by myself nor my sponsor, AutoPartsForLess.com, but rather G2G Racing. Jaskol wrote, "Even with the shortcomings and setbacks of the first few races, we had a contract and agreement for a full season effort, and we were committed to the team to see that effort through. Unfortunately, on Sunday of this week, G2G Racing requested to modify the contract between my title sponsor, AP for Less, and we were unable to accommodate the request," he stated. It was then decided by the team they needed to go in a different direction and opted to suspend our contract. This decision by the team has left me disappointed, as I felt I had worked very hard and faithfully to deliver my best efforts under the terms of the contract, along with putting forth much effort to help grow their new team, Jaskol continued. At this time, I'm exploring several other opportunities and hope to make an announcement soon. I wish G2G well with their future racing endeavors. This is most definitely not the end, merely a small detour to more opportunities. Much love to all my family, friends, supporters, and fans. I asked Matt Jaskol whether he'd be willing to comment more on the story. He said that his sponsors advised him to not say anything for political reasons. He did say this, though. Quote, "There's 3 sides to every story, right? This side, that side, and what really happened. But in the case of G2G, it's pretty apparent and obvious what's going on. It's really too sad. I had high hopes to develop and work with G2G, but it is what it is. It fell apart. I really appreciate that my sponsors sticking behind me. I got to race Portland a few weeks back, which went really good, and I think we'll try to do 1 or 2 more races this year, and we'll give another attempt at a full season for next year." I dug a little deeper and found something a bit more sinister. Twitter user LSTNSCRFN said, quote, "The info I got is very interesting. What happened was one of my buddies thought Matt's sponsor, AP for Less, didn't pay the team after Martinsville, and we got into a discussion that led to CEO Chris Davenport explaining everything that happened. The response he gave then was deleted, most likely so G2G couldn't sue the sponsor for leaking information to the public. Mr. Davenport explained that they had the contract switched up with them at the last second, making the sponsor pay more than what they were supposed to. And that's why after Coda, both Matt and Auto Parts for Less left G2G. So, who would replace him? Clayton Honeycutt. A full-time racer in the Cars Late Model Stock Tour, driving the number 12 for Nelson Motorsports, and a full-time racer in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, driving the number 17 for RFK Racing, teammates to Parker Retzlaff. Honeycutt intended to make his debut way back in 2019 for his team Clayton Honeycutt Racing, which made select ARCA starts that year, but unfortunately, this didn't happen. He'd have to wait until 2022 with G2G at Martinsville. So who's going to be in the 47? Well, that was supposed to be Tim Vaines, but as you can guess, the team withdrew. As I alluded to, the team was running low on funds, and in order to fill the void Auto Parts for Less left, they needed a big corporate, which in essence means a pay driver would have to come along in order to supplant the organization. On to the race, though. Practice and qualifying would be cancelled due to weather, so Honeycutt rolled off 31st on the grid. The green flag comes out, and by lap 3, Honeycutt falls to 33rd. A few laps later, he radios to the team that the truck feels weird, and that he's trying to control the thing exiting the corner. For the next 10 laps or so, Honeycutt slowly but surely climbs his way up to the 25th spot, where he sits by lap 28. A tire rub-laden Hailie Deegan angers Clayton, and he says that she's just blocking people and that she killed their right side. Sometime later, the caution comes out for Spencer Boyd, and they stay out during it, allowing them to vault to 12th. After the restart on lap 44, they actually climb up to P11 and are in a tense battle with Kyle Busch. Yes, that Kyle Busch. The stage ends and the team finishes it off in 12th. They pit and come off in 10th. However, the RPM set for pit road wasn't correct, and so they have to come in again, destroying all the progress that they had made up to that point. They climb up to P27 before handling becomes a concern. By the end of stage 2, they are 33rd, 1 lap down. The green flag comes back out on lap 108.
Part-time schedule, but looks quite at home here at Martinsville. Started at the tail of the field, and he is on row 2 for this restart, taking us into the final stage. Byron in the 7, going to the front.
Matt Crafton fills that hole that William Byron opened up.
Oh, and there's significant contact, and that's the 46 of Clayton Honeycutt making his series debut with some significant damage. I think Dylan Stoyer was involved in that in the 20 truck as well. A couple of youngsters making their first truck series start.
Yeah, Clayton runs the Cars Tour for Barry Nelson. Was runner-up in the points last year in the Cars Tour with a couple wins.
Take a look and keep an eye on the 46, the black 46 there at the left side of your screen.
Oh, 3 wide at Martinsville.
Austin Wayne Self getting in there. That wasn't the 20 of Stoyer like I had thought initially. Here comes Stoyer. Oh yeah. So
nice
Stoyer
job.
didn't have any choice. Maybe a little bit of contact from that 20 truck, but the damage was already done.
Did a nice job, that truck turning right in front of his lap, and he was able to get by without any significant contact.
Scored 34th at the end of the race, the result was certainly not indicative of the potential to get a solid finish. Up next, Bristol Dirt. The team tops dirt racer Andrew Gordon to drive the 46. They're the only truck to not have practice, but nonetheless they'll start 3rd in qualifying heat number 1. By the time the heats are over, they are placed 22nd on the grid. But something else happens. The team is not running under the G2G banner for the race, and has changed their number to 49. What happened? According to Tim Vaines, owner of G2G Racing, his team purchased his chassis from Ray Cicerelli's CMI Motorsports team, but somehow the chassis was not registered to G2G when the team unloaded for practice on Friday. NASCAR told us 5 minutes before practice. Long story short, the chassis number wasn't registered with my team. It was registered with CMI Motorsports, Vaines explained to TobyChristie.com. When we bought several chassis from CMI Motorsports, we transferred them to G2G Racing. Somehow this particular chassis number didn't get transferred, and we didn't find out. This is our only dirt truck, until 5 minutes before practice. NASCAR called us into the hauler. Andrew Gordon, who was set to pilot the truck for the team, found himself in a situation where it looked like he was not going to be able to run the race. That is, until Vaines phoned Cicerelli and worked out a plan for Cicerelli to dust off his CMI Motorsports team for the weekend to provide Gordon a chance to make the field. Obviously, I have a good driver in Andrew Gordon running this weekend, so I wanted to try and make it right, Vaines stated. So NASCAR said since the chassis is registered under CMI Motorsports, that CMI could submit an owner's license and submit a late entry and run the 49. So I ended up paying the entry fee and owner's license for Ray to make it right, said Andrew Gordon. I kind of understand where NASCAR is coming from, because they don't want people just showing up and running people's stuff. But at the same time, the list from CMI Motorsports and then the list from G2G is exactly the same. But that one chassis number is not on there, Vaines said with dejection. But it was on CMI's list that I transferred. No idea how that happened, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Okay. What? If you have to rewatch that part just to get an idea of what's going on here, then so did I. Several times. Honestly, I still don't get it. Oh, and did I mention that they are running a Ford Tundra or Toyota F-150 this week? Yeah, I'm sorry to any of my truck fans out there. Andrew Gordon would end up finishing 32nd in the race and have a fairly forgettable day when it was all said and done. For Darlington, they would bring back Brennan Poole to drive the 46. The sponsor? According to RacingReference.com, the team's registered sponsor was the G2G staff. On a quick side note, the tires were also not even matched. Nonetheless, after practice, Poole was 30th quickest, and after qualifying, he'd be 27th quickest. The green flag flies out, and they come down to pit road as the lap transitions between 1 and 2 with an issue. After some time, they diagnose the issue and get back out on track. They'll have to bank on the attrition factor of this race to gain some spots. A blown engine on Akinori Ogata, a crash involving Tanner Gray and Chase Purdy, an issue with Chris Wright, and a vicious crash between Blaine Perkins and Tate Fogelman bolstered them up to the P30. Had Haley Deegan crashed 13 laps prior to her incident, they would have gained that spot too. All in all, Poole salvages the race pretty well. Next up, Kansas Speedway. For Kansas Speedway, they'll top Ryan Huff to drive the truck. Having made starts in the ARCA Menards Series and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series the past 2 seasons, his best finish at Kansas came in 2020, while driving for Andy Hillenberg, finishing 13th, while his best finish in the trucks was 19th, running for Room Brothers. Across the 2 National Series, Huff has recorded 11 career starts, 2 of those being truck starts, recording 5 top 10 finishes. This will be his 3rd time competing in a truck. Despite completing the fewest laps in practice, a grand total of 2, he sits 25th by the end of it. Unfortunately, this fails to translate into qualifying, as he'll roll out 31st. After going green, Huff drops a couple places but gains those back, and by lap 9 he sits in P31. He'll gain one more spot by the end of the stage and will also lose a lap. Pit entry goes smooth, but pit exit spells disaster as they get caught speeding. He gains a spot during stage 2, hits the wall, and loses a spot to Matt Mills. With a few laps to go in stage 2, he loses a second lap and finishes in P30. They get caught speeding again after pit stops. During stage 3, they get lapped a third time. During the stage, Huff reports the track is light and wants to spin out. By lap 119, he's up to P29. He gets lapped a fourth time and a fifth time, but does gain a spot before the checkered flag falls on a 28th place finish. Next up, Texas. Brennan Poole returns, but for this race, they won't even fund it out of the team. Rather, Vanes will fund it out of pocket. This turns out to be one of the better races, practicing, qualifying, and racing in the top 30 for the entire weekend. Ultimately, they end up finishing 23rd in this race. Next up, Charlotte. Charlotte's the same song, just a different verse, except this time they fail to finish the race. After running as high as 23rd, Poole reports a problem with the rear. This turns out to be an issue with the drive shaft, and they're out in dead last by lap 38. Next up, Gateway. Gateway comes and goes as Poole qualifies 31st for the weekend, but runs solid enough before he reports a vibration. They think it's either a tire or a drivetrain, but whatever's wrong, it goes away. At least for the time being, as another issue surfaces much later. On lap 77, they officially DNF with rear gear problems and are scored in 34th. Next up, Sonoma. Sonoma encapsulates the essence of G2G racing in all of the worst ways. Credit to lascar.com/Brockbeard for the following information. Link in the description for the full article. The story starts with Travis Mccullough. He lives and works less than a 2 hours drive east of the Sonoma Raceway. He has a race shop a few miles from his hometown where he fields entries in NASCAR Pro Late Models, the NASCAR Southwest Tour, ARCA, and more recently the SRL Touring Series between the open wheel modifieds and Pro Late Models. He's occasionally competed on the East Coast and on ovals, but has more often raced closer to home, preferring the excitement of the road courses where he got his start. Through it all, Mccullough's goal has been to make it into NASCAR's national competition, and he's become even more determined due to his father's health issues. We've worked our entire lives of just racing and hopes to get into a truck or Xfinity car, said Mccullough. Being in Cup is no longer an option. It would have been until they did this new change. So now we're just looking at getting into something that's around NASCAR. To take a step forward toward this goal, Mccullough reached out to his friend in NASCAR, Brett Bodine. Brett Bodine and I have known each other for quite some time, said Mccullough. He's my guy I've always talked to, and which most drivers have to that are new to the series. So I called him, and I said, hey, I want to do this deal. What do you think? And he goes, here's the thing. You want to do Sonoma, you want to do some of these other tracks. That's fine. The only thing I'm not clearing you for is the chase. When we're in the playoffs, I'm not going to clear you unless you have at least a race under your belt. And I said, that's not going to be a problem. We should have no issue. We're going to Sonoma on June 11th. I think we'll be fine. He says, no problem. I'm going to clear you. You're all good? With Bodine's support, Mccullough looked up different teams. Looking to run the truck series at Sonoma, he soon landed on G2G Racing. Sometime between the end of February and early March 2022, Mccullough entered into a contract to drive for G2G at Sonoma. I did all this, the deal with G2G, by myself. I have a problem with allowing people to do my work for me. I work 20 or 22 hours a day, have my own family, have my own companies. I work a lot, so I can do this. So I tend to go out on my own. I do have a lot of people I talk to, but I've actually never been to a truck race, Mccullough said. As of Monday, June 13th, he's yet to meet Tim Vanes in person and has only corresponded with him by phone. As announced by the team, on June 7th, Mccullough would run G2G's number 47 Toyota at Sonoma. California Tang Pneumatics, CTP, the primary sponsor of his own cars, is Mccullough's business which he operates with his father, brother, mother, and uncle. Among the company's business partners are longtime customers California Rock and Ready Mix, and one of the country's largest transporters of sugar and molasses, Vernon Transportation. Vernon's logo would be on the hood of the number 47. We didn't actually get all the stickers on the truck due to the time frame there with the team running behind, said Mccullough of the truck he was scheduled to run. But we have a lot of sponsors who are part of this deal besides ourselves. Mccullough would also have a teammate. Just 1 week prior, Mason Philippi made his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut at the Portland International Raceway in a one-off for DGM Racing. Prior to that, Philippi had already made a name for himself in sports car racing. June 10th, which was a Friday, had a shortened schedule of 2 practice sessions, one for trucks and the other for ARCA West. By lunch, the teams had arrived and were unloading. At the far end of the paddock, Mccullough and Philippi stood with helmet badge in hand and 9 handpicked crew members of their team waiting for the G2G hauler to arrive. The hauler was late by almost 3 hours, said Mccullough. So immediately when 12:30 p.m. came, when the hauler was supposed to be there, it didn't show up. We sent out another text to Tim Vanes at 12:30, just verifying the hauler. We never heard any more. Then 1 o'clock, 1:30, no hauler. We were getting ready to start loading up our stuff. We're getting ready to leave because that's when we figured at this point something had happened there and it was a scam. Mason Philippi and I were standing there like, I guess we're going home. We don't have trucks. We're both lost. And then the hauler showed up an hour and 10 minutes before practice. Tim Silva said their tractor trailer broke down, causing the delay. After the trucks unloaded, Mccullough first, then Philippi. Mccullough noticed something wrong. The side skirting was missing and the electronics were still inside the truck. Then they realized the majority of electrical stuff and other miscellaneous pieces weren't even hooked up to the engine. Oil was leaking everywhere. Parts and pieces were missing. After an hour and 10 minutes of work, they were 5 minutes shy of practice. There was no setup or spring, and NASCAR was getting antsy. Ilmore, engine supplier for the truck series, was too. However, there was too much stuff that wasn't done and too much work on for that day, and they weren't even able to turn a lap in practice. By rule, NASCAR prohibits a rookie driver from making their first laps in qualifying or the race, so Mccullough missing practice put an end to his weekend. The 47 did go through tech inspection on Friday, and it didn't go well. The truck was ill-built, and NASCAR told them to get the thing out of the lineup, and it's nowhere close to being done. Unable to clear inspection, the 47 withdrew, locking the remaining 36 entrants. The truck wasn't the only issue that week. Mccullough underwent a drug test via a different vendor than what NASCAR approved of, so he had to do it again, and he was told his results would come on Friday before practice. But Friday comes and his results aren't there, and thus he wasn't cleared to practice. A representative from NASCAR's drug test vendor got back to him on Monday and said they got his drug test, but someone failed in the group of tests that went through, and when that happens, they have to do it again for everyone that was in that group. Among the people looking under the hood of the number 47 was Stephen Parsons, a regular in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, who wasn't entered in any of the weekend's races. Parsons was instead brought to the track as a spotter for all three events, including Todd Bodine's team in the Truck Series race and Michael McDowell's in Cup. But before he'd even left at the airport, Parsons got a phone call from G2G. I landed and I got the call, he said. They said that Travis Mccullough was having some trouble, and I think his drug test hadn't been processed yet, and they might need somebody to drive that truck. So I said sure. We lined somebody up to spot for Todd, and I ended up being able to drive. However, he'd actually replaced Philippi because, as I said, the 47 withdrew. Philippi had up and left and told the team that he was unsatisfied with his own performance in practice. In actuality, though, he said it was the truck, not his inexperience. The race was even more disastrous, as they were out by lap 9 with oil cooler problems. A tough break for Stephen Parsons, Travis Mccullough, and Mason Philippi across the board. Next up, Knoxville. For Knoxville, they'll top driver Bryson Mitchell, who raced against his brother Braden Mitchell in the race. They have a mutual sponsor in Sparks Energy, which is good for G2G, as they have almost no money left at this point. They qualified 26th after the heat, but as you can guess, problems ensued in the race. They were out on lap 110 with throttle issues. For Nashville, they bring in late model talent Chase Janes, and after qualifying 35th, they are out by lap 1. Lap 1 with rear gear issues. And just a few days back in mid-Ohio, they brought back Mason Philippi and got a sponsor, OpenFender.com. They brought out the first caution on lap 9 after their engine expired and recorded another last place finish. So how does a team so incompetent that builds half-broken trucks, that reportedly might not be paying employees, that has no money, no leadership, no experience, and has a social media account that tries to call out anybody who speaks an ill-will word about the team, still have plans to compete at the Tricky Triangle of Pocono and future races beyond this? How is it that NASCAR hasn't stepped in and put a stop to this madness? But that's enough of my inquiries. Now, I want to hear from you. After all of this, what do you make of G2G racing? Let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, this has been the news. I'll see you.